Hello YouTube and welcome back to the channel outside the target demographic. Today I'm going to show you how I lube up and prepare an AR upper before firing. So let's get started. I've done an initial unboxing video on this Palmetto State Armory 11.5-inch upper. I'm going to go ahead and now add some lube and grease to the upper to get it ready to function. So you'll notice this is not Heinz tomato ketchup. This is a mixture of synthetic oil and synthetic grease. You can make it on the cheap by yourself. And this comes from a channel that I watch called the School of the American Rifle. Would highly recommend. He is a student in the AR platform and a master of it, and teaches people what to look for and tolerances and stuff like that. And in his years of experience with the rifle, he came up with the concoction that he uses and he recommends. So basically you just use synthetic grease that you would use with automobiles and tools and all. And you would add to it synthetic oil until you get something the consistency of about honey. So very simple to mix, and more importantly, effective and cheap, which is what I'm all about. So we're going to get us a glob here. We're also going to get paper towel. You can never have too many. Right off camera here. So the first thing is there's a mantra that if it turns, oil it. If it slides, grease it. Well, we have a lot of things turning and sliding, and sometimes turning while sliding, going on inside this upper. So by having both grease and oil, you're covering all the bases. Basically, from what I've learned from his YouTube channels, again, the School of the American Rifle, would highly recommend, is due to the direct impingement system of the AR. Basically, if you were to just pour this solution into your upper, fire it a couple times, probably 20, 30, clearing jams and all, any excess would be discharged and blown out of the rifle. Now, we're not going to be doing that. I don't recommend you do. But all that to say, you really can't have too much lube. There you go. The joke has been made. But we're going to be diligent yet sparingly applying all throughout the surface area that's going to contact. This is going to sit in the rifle like this, and you'll be charging it back under spring tension. It'll be firing back forward. This top rail, as well as the sides here, will be taking the brunt of metal on metal scraping. So we want to make sure that there's enough protection there. I'm trying to get the inside of this milled channel done as well, and that will spread itself as the bolt carrier reciprocates. So that's basically all we need there. Again, too much, I suppose, is better than not enough. You may just get a bit of a splash with your first couple shots. I'm going to take up a couple inches from the rear. Okay. Set this aside. Bolt carrier group. So what this is going to do is it's going to be sitting right about here. As a matter of fact, if I put this back in, you can see where the milled cuts here for your forward assist, and where the forward assist that you use with your thumb, where this bolt carrier will be sitting. So if I extract that, it'll be sitting about here. This guy will, this is your bolt. This is going to pick up your casing off of the magazine. It's going to push it forward. As it pushes it forward, the rest of the bolt carrier is going to want to continue forward while this guy is sitting up against a wall. And that wall is going to be the chamber. So as the remainder of this bolt carrier comes forward, that bolt is going to rotate. So you can see it shrinks. We're at just shy of an inch. and it will recess about a quarter of an inch rearward, and that will provide the lockup. Each one of these teeth or lugs will lock up against your chamber there, and you can see right now there is not a star at the noon position, or sorry, not a lug at the noon position. When I rotate this, this one is now sitting at the noon position. So you have, what is that, like 20 degrees, 15 degrees of rotation there. That's enough to physically lock this into your chamber. When the projectile fires, there's going to be the projectile leaving out the barrel as well as the brass pushing backwards, equal and opposite reaction. And that backwards motion is going to want to push and unlock the lugs, which will allow rearward travel of your bolt carrier. So, all that to say, this will be sitting here. It will recede all the way this far, and this part, you'll notice, goes past your upper by quite a bit. That's going to be going into your buffer tube, which is why having a folding AR is difficult. But so anyways, you're going to have a lot of sliding, you're going to have some rotating, and these are things that we want to account for with our grease and oil mixture. Not too much going on, a lot of tight tolerances that we on the outside and as people who don't know anything about milling wouldn't fully appreciate, but it does make for a running firearm. So I'm going to try and clean up the grease as best I can as we go. I'm going to put this here, I'm going to move you out of the way, going to clean up that grease, and we're going to get another one of those paper towels that I recommended. So the first thing we're going to do is pull this retaining pin right there. And that will allow me to remove my bolt as well as my firing pin and the locking pin there. Get it into some base components and we can go ahead and grease those up. All right, so using a tool from a Swiss Army knife, I can pull that retaining pin out. It's just a split pin, right? Now I can pull out my firing pin. While we're here, they do have a little bit of grease on there. There is some fouling at the back. You can see that's coming off. So this has been fired not by me, but by Palmetto State Armory. They do like to make sure that their firearms function. How about that? So not super concerned about that. I don't see any misshapen or peening or any bent metal on the firing pin, so we're good there. Next, you're going to want to make sure that your bolt is recessed. You'll turn this 90 degrees and pull it out. You'll notice that there is a hole in the middle of this guy. That's where the firing pin slides through, and you can tell that the tolerances are pretty close on that. This firing pin will reciprocate to fire the cartridges, and you can hear that that is a metal on metal contact point, so we are going to be adding some of the grease onto that, and you hear what it sounds like now. We'll grease it, we'll do it again, and hopefully you'll notice a difference. But all that to say, this goes in horizontally, we'll say, and then you rotate it 90 degrees. That's what holds your bolt in place. And what holds this in place is that firing pin going through it. Again, that hole that we just had it running through. So first you have to pull your firing pin in order to be able to rotate this, to remove it, to pull out your bolt. So we have the extractor, we have our ejector. Also, that is dirty. We'll be doing a little bit of work on that. It looks to be oiled. You can see some reflection off of that. So they did oil it. I'm going to go ahead and use my grease thing. Since we're here, you have 3 rings on the back here. They are free floating, just like the piston rings inside your piston of your car. And just like the piston rings in your car, they are going to allow for expansion and size changes based on pressure and temperature and all that stuff. What you do not want is all 3 of those cutouts to be lined up. Okay, so while we're here, I'm just going to go ahead and rotate them, hopefully about 100 degrees, 120 degrees out of timing with each other. And that's going to give you a better gas seal, which should give you better reliability and operation on that. But that's as far as we're going to go. You can knock out some other pins and do some other things. I'm not interested in going that far. We're just doing an initial cleaning and greasing. With the way this works, it's going to get where it's going to get anyways. Incredibly high, tens of thousands of PSI pressure in this operating system. Quite literally, the gases from the cartridge will travel down this barrel, launching the projectile. You can see there is a silver tube right here. That is called the gas tube. There's a cut in the barrel right about here that will allow the gases, as the projectile passes this block, the gas block, the projectile will be here, and it's a heavy piece of metal being pushed with resistance as it grinds its way down your barrel, right? So as soon as you give that gas a lesser path of travel, a less resistance path of travel, it's going to start going down that gas tube faster than that projectile is going to be going out the barrel. It will then kick into this piston, essentially. It's a cup. So the gases will blow into that, and that's what allows this to reciprocate backwards and then under spring tension slam forward. So all that pressure is going into that and then is going into your bulk carrier group, and it will be blowing into, I believe it's right here. Those gas rings will hold it for a period of time before it allows it to bleed off and vent out these 2 holes. So all that to say, literally the pressures of the expanding gunpowder and gases will be applied to the rear of the bullet as well as your bulk carrier group, and that will blow everything everywhere, which in this instance is actually going to help us. So I did see on School of the American Rifle, he recommends to pass a item, usually a pipe brush, through that. I don't have one, but I do have a zip tie that if I pass through and continue pushing, you will notice is making it through the gas. I want to say piston. It's not, but the gas port, which will allow the gases to move through there. He has, again, in his years of experience, found brand new firearms that this was not milled all the way through or was not lined up correctly and you will run into reliability and safety issues by not having that. So something quick to confirm. I guess you could also blow through it and confirm that it does whistle a bit. So now that we've done that, you could use a Q-tip or whatever you want. I'm going to be very generous here. Okay, so we've done the surface. I'm now going to grab this pen. And it's not only getting that pen oiled. So it is a one-way. That's interesting. So I couldn't push it through, and I tried to push it from the other side. There are apparently 2 different diameter holes, so that will mechanically prevent this from going too far, which is good, and prevents you from putting it in the wrong way, which is also very good. Designed for the military in the 60s, so not a lot of information about the rifle, and very difficult to print tens of thousands of sheets of paper to get manuals and blah blah blah. So the more idiot proof you can make something, especially a weapon, a tool, the better off you'll be. So not only is it, we recommend not to put it in this way, it's we physically made it where you cannot put it in that way. That is cuckoo clock and grandfather clock. Everyone should have one. So, ooh, that is so slick. How slick is it? So slick that it falls right out. Awesome. So, I'm going to go ahead and grease this guy up. Not caring so much about the back of it because that's not going to do anything. Mechanically, I think it's just so you have something to grab to help pull it out. So, not super concerned about that. Okay, so remember we had scrapey scrape, grindy grind. I suppose it's still there, but it slides much easier, as you can tell by this, and I'm feeling a lot less resistance on it. But we're going to go a little bit more here. Okay, so we want enough. We really don't want too much. So it's already starting to glob and all, and we are adding 0 psi of pressure to that. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe up that excess. And I feel like just by having that on there, you'll remember I cleaned off some fouling already. That's already a little bit cleaner just by having that residue work on it. So that's better than it was. There should be enough on here to do the inside of this guy. I'm going to put a little bit more right at the entrance so that as I push this into place, it's going to move that around, get that where it needs to go. Okay, what's the damage? Okay, so I had to line up that tail with the most reduced diameter there, and that gave me a bit of a struggle. So wasn't anticipating that. Let's go ahead, add a little bit of grease to help with that. I also did muck up those rings, and they were not completely lined up, right? Because they are a wider diameter. They can make the, if it's sitting like this, instead of them all being lined up, one could be here, one could be there, and one could be there, which would essentially make your diameter wider, right? So once those all got lined up, oh man, that spins. Let's see, right now you're pointing at me, so that's a half rotation with just a finger flick. That's very nice. We're going to drag it around a little bit. That's already quite a bit better. Now you'll remember that it will be, this one will be at noon, sorry. This one will be at the noon position when it is unlocked, and you'll notice too that the hole is lined up where I could put that pin back in. The other way would be this way, And we have the opposite. The odd lug out will be pointing in the completely wrong direction. Instead of upper left, it's going to be bottom right. And as we already noted minutes ago, I physically cannot put this pin in due to the reduced diameter of the other side of that hole. So if in doubt, spin it around, and that just dropped right into place. Okay, again, you're going to rotate that 90 degrees. Doesn't matter if you do 90 degrees clockwise or 90 degrees counterclockwise, and give it a twist. What you'll notice is right now it's sitting tall, right? We started horizontal and then rotated it vertical. When this bolt pulls out, it's going to stay in that position and rotate back, okay? Now we know that that's working. It is stopping the bolt from going too much further, which is its design. The thing that will prevent this from rotating, again, is your firing pin. So not only are we gonna, ooh, that was nice. I don't know if the camera caught that, but as I drop this in, and you can do it through the bottom here, or you can line it up straight through the top. As you drop that into place, due to the grease and oil and all, that actually, it dropped and then slowly recessed itself in. So that's good. We know that that oil is grabbing, which is what we want. Beautiful. All right, so I'm gonna shake that back and forth a couple times. You can hear it rattling back and forth, and that's gonna be moving the grease around. You'll notice right here on your bolt, there is a hole. If I push forward, that's gonna be that silver, come on now, there you go. That silver tip is my firing pin. And I can push that to stick out just the least littlest bit to dent that primer and fire the cartridge. So now everything is greased and oiled on the inside. The last thing we have, would recommend that you put this back. What you'll notice here, this has a bit of a sword shape, right? You have your handle, you have your cross guard, you have your blade. The back side of the cross guard is going to be what this retaining pin is going to index on. So if you put your firing pin not in enough, I can put that pin in and that firing pin will fall out. So that was not designed in a way to prevent accidental insertion. Make jokes as you feel appropriate. So if I pull that out, I put this in until it drops. Until this drops. Until it drops. Come on now. It's literally easier to do it from the bottom where you have to anticipate angles. Okay. Drop it in, push it in, push the pin, and now when I pull back on that firing pin, it has motion, but it also has a stop. And I cannot get that pin to come out. So that was properly inserted. This is allowing everything to cam and slide as it should be. We have sliding of this pin inside that cam groove. We have sliding of the bolt, sliding of the firing pin, sliding and spinning of the bolt face, indexing, all the things. So the grease and oil is going to help with all of those. Now that we've done the internals, I'm going to go ahead and apply the coating to the externals. When I first started, I assumed that these were rails that it would slide in because I was more familiar with semi-automatic handguns as well as revolvers before I got my first AR. So I thought those were rails. They are not. You don't really have to worry about oiling or greasing those. But the surfaces of the tube, so the rounded portion, you're going to want to do, as well as your gas key. That's what it is, not a piston, a gas key. So we're going to go ahead and grease that up as well. And a little bit on the inside. That gas key, pound of prevention. Gas key, so this black guy that I originally said was a piston or port, I guess that's not necessarily wrong, but this silver tube will literally, probably a good inch, will insert into this guy. So we want to make sure that this is the topmost surface that is most likely to scrape up against your charging handle. Top of the charging handle is most likely to scrape up against the upper there. But we want to make sure that we give it every chance it can at seating correctly. And you'll notice if I get close enough and the lighting works with me and the focus works and that tube will actually flare out at the end and give a bigger outer diameter to better engage and form a better air seal with the gas key here. So we're essentially done with that. This guy, you have a cut right here, quite prominent. That's where the charging handle will operate, but you'll notice right here and right here are two lugs, or two wings. Those, can I see them? You will see, wish I had a third hand. There is a circular cut in the upper right there. And due to the angle, I guess you can see there. There is a circular cut. You're going to stay? Yes, you are. Right here and there. Okay. Those circular cuts are going to allow you to drop your charging handle into it. Okay. So what I'll do is, instead of inserting this through the cut it's designed for, I'm going to insert it into the larger opening where the bulk carrier group usually goes. Now with gravity, not even me pushing on it, just gravity, it's going to seat and drop into place. And now that's going to slide, and boy, can you hear it. So I'm going to let that grease up a little bit. I'm going to remove it again. I'm going to add a little bit more. And I'm going to add it to the insertion end. That way, as it slides, it will... That's already quite a bit quieter. So not only is it quieter, but with very little motion, energy, I can bump that back into place. So that's largely what we're looking for. Apologize for the noise, but I do want to make sure that that's slopping around. Okay, now I want to pull this as rearward as I can. The key is going to slide into the recessed part of this charging handle. And now I have to line that back up again. You want that charging handle seated as rearward as it can go. Line that up, push them both in. You hear a click. Everything's going to stay in place until you pull back on your charging handle. And it will bring your bulk carrier group with you. You'll notice it won't seat it back. So this is a non-reciprocating charging handle, which is great because otherwise it'd be punching you in the face every time you fire. There should be a big recoil spring right here. Think trampoline spring. It's about that large. Does the opposite. Instead of pulling apart, it is pushing forward. All that to say, this will be reciprocating by itself. As it fires, if you need to clear a failure or charge it for the first time, use your charging handle. I'm going to slide that around a little bit. Slides pretty nice, but it's quite loud. So we're going to go ahead and give it another coat on the insertion side of things. I had originally coated the surfaces, which is fine for storage and preventing rust, but now we want enough to actually mechanically make a difference. That's already quite a bit quieter. Okay, and again, any excess is going to pool and drip around to wherever it's going to. The first couple times you fire it, we'll clean that stuff out. I feel like that was rather chatty before, so if I can pull that back enough, it's not so bad. But we're here. Go ahead and put a little bit on my fingers. Just going to run that all the way around. Activate it a couple times. Okay, so what that does, let me get this all out. We have our grooves milled into the side of the bulk carrier. What each one of those do is presents a footprint for, I don't even know if you can see that. You'll have an extension towards the rear. You can just barely see it right there. But this guy has a rod sticking out. As you push it in, that rod will go into your upper and it will cam against each one of these notches. So I can show you here. Should you have a failure to go into battery, you can't really slam this forward because you have other parts of the rifle here. You can't even get to the thumb groove to push it in, but what you can do is push that a couple times. And you can see I not only got it forward, but got the bolt head to cam and lock into place by using the forward assist. The forward assists the bolt into going forward. So not something you should ever, hopefully, have to use, but it is there. Now I'm going to start cleaning up as best I can. Paper towels are pretty abrasive, as it turns out, so I'm not really scrubbing anything as much as trying to allow it to soak up what it can. I don't want to scratch the finish, which it is a very, very, very poor quality sandpaper, so be very light. What I would recommend, if you believe that you may have used too much of this concoction or whatever gun lube you do use, when you put it onto a lower and when you store it, probably upright, right, where your butt would be on the ground, the muzzle would be up high, it has the tendency to leak or allow to flow that grease into your buffer tube, which is fine. You have a spring in there. It needs to be treated as well. It can also go into your lower, which is also mechanically acceptable. It will help keep your components all lubed and greased and everything. When you fire and compress that buffer tube, you may be in for a bit of a splash. So if you would prefer, you can just set this upright like this on a paper towel, and the paper towel or regular towel, rag, what have you, will soak up that excess over the next couple days and or weeks of it sitting, and you'll have less of a mess. But in reality, you'll be taking this apart and cleaning it So I don't know how big of a deal that is, but again, I guess it depends on how much you feel or actually did over lube. Okay, so that's that. So that's my overview on how I get ready an AR upper for firing, how to tear it apart, how the gas system works, which components need to be lubed, in what way, how they operate with each other, all that fun stuff for those of you who don't know. So this guy should be ready to go. We have new sights. We know that everything is clean and clear on the inside. Everything is lubed, ready to go. The next video I have, before we take her out shooting, will be replacing the stock squirrel cage muzzle device with a linear compensator. So be on the lookout for that. As always, this is outside the target demographic. I appreciate you guys stopping by. Any questions, comments, concerns you have, go ahead and leave them in the comments section below, and I will catch you guys in the next video.